There we go. Happy May 23rd, everybody. It has been a beautiful long weekend around here, except for the part where I forgot it was May long weekend and planted my plants too early.
Oh no, we were
So,
doing a bunch of gardening.
oh goodness. Okay, mute that tab. I love how you have to have so many tabs open to do this like Zoom to YouTube thing. One day we'll figure out how to like boss level this so that it's just instantaneous. That
It's
would be
automatic, right? Yeah.
epic.
Yeah, we were doing gardening and stuff this weekend too, but it was actually really nice here. It was like 25 degrees. Today it's not. It's definitely overcast, but I got a little, I don't know if you probably can't see it super well, but I got a bit of a sunburn.
Oh, lucky you.
You can kind of see it on
That
my
was like
chest. I'm a
our,
little bit rosy.
yeah, I have like little marks you can see, but camera hides it pretty well. Yeah, so it's been an interesting last couple of days and just focusing forward into the days ahead. It's like I don't give two craps about anything energy work.
Same.
Okay, it's not just me then, because
No,
I was so like today I was going through and I'm like, oh, it's energy update day. What am I going to say to people? I look, a butterfly. Like that's what the energy was like to me all day today. And then I was trying to tap in. Hi, lovelies. Ashley's here and Tiffany's here. Michelle's here. Hello. Good evening, afternoon, maybe morning. I don't know. And I was like, okay, that maybe this is just me being an airhead because, of course, we just moved. We got our new property. Steve and I have been post pounding all weekend and putting all of the fence lines in because the horses are coming home next weekend. And yeah, I was like, maybe it's just because I'm in farm girl mode. Maybe I'm just like tuned out of the energy work stuff and not focusing on those parts. And I'm, focused on very human things. So I entertained that thought. But then when I took it out and bumped that into the collective, it's like that's actually what the majority of people are kind of doing right now. So let us know in the comments if that's kind of where you're at. I think sometimes we try to, actually, I'm going to backtrack. I think we try too hard to be uber spiritual all the time.
ah, yes.
I think that's actually the conversation we can have today because one of the things I notice in so many of the students I have is they get so freaking addicted to energy work and constantly seeking and meditating and grabbing all these things that they actually forget to live. And the beauty about having a 3D body in this multidimensional plane is that we can have a myriad of experiences if we let ourselves, but if we get so hyper focused on all of either like our healing work or these things that we perceive are wrong with us, that actually turns into a whole new layer of addiction.
Yeah.
And yeah, this week, this energy feels like it is absolutely setting people up to come out of that hardcore work and get into summer play.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is the more that we push and try really, really hard to reach for, communication with guides and like channeling or whatever else, when it's not actually the right time for it, we like open ourselves up in a new way to like distortions and things that we don't really want to have happen. It's like when you have to fight for it, it's probably best to actually just listen to the energy of right now, which is telling me like just keep doing what you're doing, focus on the foundations, which we talk about all the time, but it's like it's still coming up. Like this weekend I went, my sister, her family, they go camping for May long weekend every year, which this past weekend in Canada was a long weekend for us. So we went out there on Saturday and just hung out at their campsite, and we went to the hot pools and we like ate chips around the fire, and we're just like really human socializing, which was kind of nice. It was different from what we usually do. I'm usually so focused on work and, expanding my consciousness and doing all the things to make myself a better person that it's really easy to forget to just go out and like just talk to people, or be out in nature or whatever else it is. So,
Well, and really, if we think about it, that's still being spiritual. It's looking
yeah,
after different needs that our body and our energy field has in this plane that we're choosing to exist in at this time. So I definitely feel like there's a catch-22. There's like a dark side to this aspect. And this is something I actually have been noticing in some people too. And I know we've touched on this a little bit, maybe even in the energy updates, but sometimes what I'm noticing happen is it's like a group of people kind of gets into that collective swing because there's these tides we can ride out, right? And then there are other big currents that come sweep us up, and we start getting into these other frequencies that we need to start downloading. But then sometimes what happens is people, when they're tired, or they don't take that time for rest, or they don't take that time for discernment and checking through the data, they get into those levels, like you were saying, Violet, of getting into distortion fields. And so the opposite side to this is, I'm seeing people who are not taking time to address and mitigate their stress levels in whatever else is going on in their life, or their grief, or their anger, or their sadness, whatever it is, who are then going way off the deep end with what they perceive as this heightened consciousness, this heightened awareness that they think they're having, and these perceptions of channels, or, counsels, or things coming through them, that they're sharing these prophetic messages. But at the end of the day, like, when we, as these multidimensional starseeds, healers, intuitives, whatever you want to label yourself as, when you're reading those channels, or when those things are coming through, if they are not tangible, right? If they're not applicable, if it is not open-ended, chances are there is some kind of hijacking going on that we need to pay attention to. Now, one of the current waves, actually, and it's funny, this is being brought up everywhere. My husband brought this up as a conversation, and then one of our mentors in our Decodes program sent me a message about it. Actually, I think she sent it to our group. One of the hijack fields that's actually going on right now is this whole thing with transhumanism and gender identity, or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
So, controversial subject, buckle up for this one, and don't come at me with your trauma. Well, I'm serious. Like, I just don't tolerate it around here. You kind of got to deal with your own ish. And I just have one point of view in a sea of voices, and you get to do with whatever I'm about to share with you, whatever it is you want. I have a budding theory starting to build about why we are at a point in humanity where, I think the statistic is that there's something like 23% of youth, like 12 and under, are now having confusion, is the word they used in some of these studies and articles, about who they are and what their gender identity actually is, and are identifying as trans. And I started looking at this, and yeah, it's totally in the schools, Christy. I agree. I've started looking at this because I have a number of clients coming forward, especially out of like religious grids of all things, which is super interesting, about, worried about shame or grief about having feelings, or these like desires that don't match what they've been told they have to be, in these different pantheons of belief. And so it gets interesting when these patterns come up, but I'm like, one of the collective hijacks that's happening right now is blurring identity. Now, identity is not just like whatever genitalia you have, but we get into these different things within humanity where we're like, oh, well, you have to be labeled as this. You have to be successful, and successful means that. Or the fad in 2022 is for everybody to become an online digital influencer, right? Like, there are these different waves that come through, and the wave right now is not having an identity that anybody else can pin down so that nobody can attack you. It's a new level of trauma and protection mechanism. I was like turning this one over in her head. So here's why I think there's a big trauma field sitting behind this. Every client I've worked with, and in the discussions I've had with numerous people going through these different, levels of identity and figuring out who they are and how they want to present themselves to the world and what's going on internally, not a single one of them feels good on any layer, on any level of who they are. And every single one of them has told me, I have to use this mask in this area, this mask in this area. it's a new way of wearing a different type of mask for some people to protect them from others who are going to want to judge them for whatever is going on underneath their skin. And what I'm seeing happen in these kids, which is, I have a strong opinion about this one. What I'm seeing happen in all these kids who are now saying, well, you know, I'm not a girl, I'm a potato. I'm not a boy, I identify as this, whatever these things are, is instead of these kids being able to look at themselves and say, here are my superpowers, here are the things that are unique about me, they're taking the focus off of, you know, those parts of self that could go out to the world, and they're layering a new trauma field of confusion about how their bodies are supposed to work. It's another shame level of sexuality. It's another shame level of gender and identity that's going to be imprinted for generations to come.
Where's that coming from though? Like,
No
that's the part that I'm so confused about, because if it's so many young people, like it's not just, you know, older teens, this is young,
it's young. I mean,
some of them you know.
Well, there's a kid in my daughter's class right now, 11 years old, who, you know, she requested the teacher do a new meeting. It's like, you know, almost end of the school year, to reintroduce everybody's pronouns, because I should change this. They have now decided they want to change how they are referenced, right? Like, I feel like we've taken this huge trauma field for people that morph from just more than being attracted to, you know, same-sex couples. Who gives a crap? Like, love who you want to love. It's like morphed into this whole thing of, I don't love how my body operates, or I have these other things that I think are not intrinsically me, or I don't know how to be how I feel based on all of the identities that society previously built. So now I'm going to layer on all of these other frequencies, all of these other trauma fields, to try and exist in a new type of world. It's blowing my mind, to be honest.
I mean, the first assumption that sort of came to me when all of this started coming up was that it's sort of like how, you know, when we're playing with dualities and we start like moving out of just being in like what you call having your stake in the sand in one particular belief that this is how it is and this is always how it is. And then we start releasing from that. And oftentimes what happens is we have this wild pendulum swing to the opposite side before we end up being able to just kind of like be a little bit more fluid in the middle. And so my first instinct is that that's what's happening, is it's this wild pendulum swing from, you know, what our parents and their parents and what a lot of us were dealing with as children growing up was boy, girl, very specific gender descriptions. And even as far as like colors and the things that you like or don't like, defining if you're a boy or a girl, those kinds of things being so rigid in what that means, to the complete opposite, which is like a lack of gender entirely, before we kind of like just stop caring so much about what those identity markers are and just like embrace who we are. But as you're talking about it, definitely feels like there's more layered in there than just that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one piece of it, but it's being encouraged, you know, from government level. And anytime, call me a conspiracy theorist, but anytime things start getting encouraged from that type of level, I have to wonder what else is going on. I mean, the part that feels like a distraction to me is all of the things that they're starting to experiment with, like letting birthing people be men because they're going to start transplanting uteruses into them. Like, cool, have fun shooting that out your penis. Like, that's going to be good times. But, you know, I have to wonder, when they're encouraging that at that level, what is the ulterior motive? Because nothing they do in that way ever is coming out from a clean place. And let's face it, not every single person who's in government, but majority of the structure that is in place at our time of living is not being dictated by, you know, beautiful beings of light and love who just want harmony for everybody. There is a level of malevolence in there. And I feel like this is just another one of those radio waves that's pulsing out that was very similar to, let's go back 2.5 years ago. We're all in this together. Stay 6 feet apart. Socially distance yourself. It feels like another programmable wave that's coming out, like a level of subconscious hypnotism that people aren't recognizing, at least some of them. And I think it's hitting some of the kids in that way. I'm not noticing it hit adults as badly, but a lot of, our teens and very early 20s, there's some of them that are also getting hit in this way. And so I don't have conclusions for sure, but I have questions about why now.
Do you think that there could be, even for some of them, a correlation to maybe hormonal disruptions happening in the body?
For sure. I think that's part of what it's riding in on, is all of these endocrine problems that people have right now, and especially in our youth. I mean, these kids are living in the most toxic era that humanity has ever gone through. Look at the number of people who are having fertility issues. Look at the number of people, like, right from a young age, are having painful, horrendous periods, right? Look at the number of people. I mean, some of my girlfriends who have been on Plenty of Fish, we laugh about it, but I'm really tracking it. There's so many men that are having like major impotence problems now at this stage. Like, we are living in a toxic environment. And so when our bodies are battling that, and our body burden load, right? So our toxin burden is already at an all-time high. We're already going to be stressed without even having to have mental, emotional stressors. Right? Just our physical is already out. So it's going to throw everything else out for sure. And we all, like, maybe you guys are, if you're new to me or you haven't been around for very long, you might not be aware of this conversation, but one of the most commonly hijacked systems is the human endocrine system. It's super easy to change how you think, to change how you feel, to change how you move, to change how you interact, by starting to manipulate how your hormones are interacting with one another and how they interact with the environment around you, right? It's super easy now with the food additives they have to create mimicked hormones, right? They call them EDCs. So they're chemical compounds that come into your guys' bodies, and your body thinks it's like an estrogen hormone. So it binds anyways, right? And then carries out the actions of what estrogen would normally do. So anyways, I think it's a little bit of a gong show. I think there are neurotoxins going on with it. I genuinely do believe that some of these people going through this are dealing with walk-in like scenarios and or entity attachments. I've seen that in a good number of these kids that are causing gender confusion or sexuality confusion. And don't get me, like, please don't put words in my mouth. Any of you guys that are listening, like, I am all for love who you want to love. All for it. Don't care if you're gay at all. What I care about is, can you rock the skin you're in and work with the biology you're given and be synced up with all layers and levels of your soul? Because if you can't, you're going to fall apart at some point. And that's what starts concerning me as a practitioner, is I'm seeing so many people go, well, I am now a potato, so I don't need a vagina. Well, you were born with one, you have periods, you have these things. Like, we have to be able to work with your biochemistry in order for you to actualize where you want to go as a multidimensional human being. So that's where I start getting a little bit like, what the is going on here? It blows my brain. And maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm missing something,
Maybe it's possible. Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably going to be more information coming out. It seems a bit strange that as a society, we're so hyper focused on it, though. Like, that to me is very weird. Like, why?
It is very weird.
Feels like a very big distraction mechanism. It's like, what is that? And then with the young kids, I'm like, where are they picking this up from? Because if it doesn't actually belong to them, they're picking it up from somebody else or somewhere else. And what is that?
It's coming through the major power over power grids. Like, I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
That's the part I do know. It's the why. that I don't know.
Yeah.
And the only reason I care is because these people are ending up in my inbox and in my office, right? And if I don't have all the data to track, I don't know how to unwind the whole puzzle, right? Anyways, I can see a lot of you guys are in the comments are kind of relating to this conversation or have even had this in the last little bit. Jennifer's wondering, could the 5G rollout have anything to do with this along with the chat? I
Feels
think
a little flat to me.
I think that's just coincidental timing. I don't think it's, at least not physically, chemically connected. Timing, maybe, with like stressor after stressor after stressor. Yeah, it feels flat to me too, for sure. Oh man, in other news, we have a lot of magical people in HRA. I've seen how many people have tried the spoon bending. I was checking in on that today.
That
Holy
crazy?
crap, we have a talented crew.
Oh my gosh, that just blew my mind. It's like,
did you try it yet?
Did I? No, I didn't. It's on my to-do list. I gotta find a spoon that I'm actually okay with bending.
Yeah, all of my flatware is thick. I don't have any of the thin metal spoons that they typically use or forks. So I'm like, I might have to go shopping, go to IKEA or Walmart or something just for like one single spoon.
Just go to a thrift store. They usually have all kinds of stuff there. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that fork will probably cost me the same as it did at Walmart. Yeah, so there is a awesome video, if you guys haven't seen it, in HRA headquarters, because we're doing our little Harry Potter month. So we're working on all of our telepathy, mind control, starting to move everything. It's just in HRA headquarters. So you guys can look for that video and go try your hand at spoon bending. And if you manage to do it, put your thing up. And if you didn't, I would love to hear what came up for you, because I remember a year and a half ago when I tried it for the first time, it didn't work for me. And I was like, I'm supposed to be super magical and can do all these things. And I can move people's bodies from a distance and I can't even bend a spoon. But it was interesting because when I went into doing the spoon bending, I did what I do with every single person I listen to. I go in a huge skeptic.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and I sit there and I was like realizing I was judging the bananas out of this chick on the internet who's like, and you're just going to concentrate and do it like this. And I'm like, really? That's it? Right? So instead of syncing up to her field, that's so funny. Amber's like, I thought headquarters was for staff. We post all of the things from our team there. You guys can't create posts in that one, but it's just so that anything we post that you guys don't want to miss, it doesn't get lost in everybody's comments. Anyway, so I realized that this is likely something a lot of you guys do when you go into practice some of your energy work, or you go into like emotionally release, or you go into, take something out of your system that we've been working on with a circle. You're probably like, really?
Yeah, if you go into it with that attitude, it's definitely not going to work.
Right? Because one of those
frustrating, because like I get it. I'm a huge skeptic too. So it's you got to kind of balance it out. And at some point you have to just be like, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go all in and try it. If it doesn't work, then I can put my skeptic hat back on and be like, that thing that didn't work, but I'm not going to go into it with that layered on top of it. Otherwise you're just like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, it's totally what that is. And I just thought it was so funny, and it's so valid for me to catch that, I think, and share that with you guys, because we get into that habit of being a skeptic of everything, which in my opinion, we kind of have to be. But I think we can borrow a Colbyism on this one and go with a little bit of delusional optimism when it's just fun and games in this manner, right? Where we can just jump in, try something new and see if it works. Can we do telekinesis? Listen, you can do whatever you want to do. Let us know how it goes and then write the instruction manual.
Yeah.
Technically, you guys use telekinesis all the time. This is something people don't think about, but those of you guys that are practitioners that work over the internet and work with clients across the globe, you literally bilocate in order to run a 3D body that can have a conversation, and in order to run over there to be able to manipulate their system with them in order to get the results you need. Some of you guys are going to get really strong at it, and you'll feel like you can actually see your other avatar adjusting things. So for example, when I'm doing sessions and I'm working on rebalancing somebody's craniosacral system from a distance, I have my body, I can feel that extension actually running all of those code lines and moving all of that data here, but I can feel myself as an extension over there, fixing it all and aligning them as if they were on my table here in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you get good at it. And as soon as you understand that, you can do a lot of fun things. If you guys want to practice though, a fun way to do this, grab a friend and then give yourself a craving and then send it to your friend. So I could sit here all day tomorrow and be like, my God, I just want a chocolate bar, right, Violet? I just want a chocolate bar. Violet wants a chocolate bar. So you can start bringing that energy field and sending it, be nice, don't send something naughty, right? But then Violet might message me later and be like, oh my God, all I craved all day was chocolate and it took all I had and I made it to 7-Eleven. I just couldn't stop it anymore. And then I can giggle internally and be like, right? But find a friend that you have permission with and then give yourselves like a week span to play in. Super fun.
So funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Somebody said something else about that spoon word. Oh, I don't know where it went. Anyways. So what's coming up this week? I think there's a circle with Sam. I think she's doing a Reiki circle coming up right away.
She's doing a circle on boundaries, actually, on Friday, I think. Friday. Let me just double check the calendar here. So we've got Patty's course number 3 for Talking Tarot on Wednesday, and then Sam's boundary circle is on Friday. Yeah, so we're getting pretty close to having like almost at least 2 things going on every week now in HRA, which is pretty cool. So yeah,
it is fun. Yeah, and then I know next week I'm doing a circle on trigger stacking.
Mm-hmm.
So for any of you guys that have ever been in that situation where it's like the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, I'm gonna show you guys how to reverse engineer that process so you don't get to those breaking points ever again. Because they're stressful AF. So that's going to be what we're working on with me at the end of the month. And then of course, in June, we're going into summer solstice and there's going to be some fun coming out with that one. One of the other things I thought would be kind of interesting to just hash out a little bit, Violet, is I've noticed my motivations changing since I moved.
Just since you moved?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Is it related to the move or is that just a coincidence?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I'm not in conclusion about that. But it's really fascinating because so much of my day life was taken up by being on technology, being behind the computer. And I realized once we finally got to this land and we've been here for a few days that, you know, I kind of got everything I was asking for and then some in a space in terms of like having room to move around, being able to bring the horses home, having space to build a bougie coop. We just brought our 14 chicks home last night. There was only supposed to be 10 in the box. And then I like started counting them, putting them into the brooder and there's like 14 of them. I'm like, I have to build a bigger coop. Steve's not pleased. Anyway, I was sitting there and just looking at the land and the space. And I went, my soul loves being outside. My soul loves being connected with all these beings in a multitude of ways. And I started really reevaluating how I was spending my days and my evenings previously. And even though I knew these things about me, it's like I couldn't live these things about me, not in at least the previous 3 homes I was in. It just, no matter how hard I thought about it, no matter how hard I wanted to push myself to do it, it's like I couldn't get to that point where I was spending more time out in the wilderness. I couldn't get to that point where I could find that beautiful work-life balance. And, you know, we kind of talked a little bit about this last week about right place, right timing, but I'm noticing just how much ease I sit in every single day since getting into this home. Like I'm really good now at balancing my time and having time for pets and husband and kids and work and my body and. But why couldn't I do that anywhere else?
I mean, the property you're on is very different now from what you've been on recently in the last few years.
Sure.
That's part of it. I don't know. It could be timing.
Could be timing, could be evolution and all the things I've uncovered.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is not just you. Like, really, I mean, if you think about it, because I've been very aware of this feeling, especially over the last, like, it's been getting really loud over the last couple of days, especially like the last week or so. Um, what it really feels like to me is just even more of an invitation to like get really super duper clear on what we actually want our days to consist of and prioritizing those things and being like unapologetically just like no to everything else that doesn't fit into that. So I don't know that it's all you, but I think that probably whatever you've been walking through has led you to this point right now, right? Like, in that part we can probably say for sure. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what else is going on. Like, is anybody else feeling this feeling of like motivation changing or your focus shifting? I'd be really interested to hear if anybody else is noticing that, or even just like getting the
Yeah.
urge to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Let us know in the comments if any of the rest of you guys are kind of in that space where you're really reevaluating how you spend your days, or if that shifted, because this could just be like what I'm walking through thing. This could be a collective thing, right? I'm not sure. But I know, like, one of the things we've talked about, Violet, on a company level is one of the things that lights both of us up and where we see so many people just absolutely fly is in those in-person connections and really coming together and putting their hands on bodies and being in circle together and learning that it's safe to be held and be, with others in an environment like that.
Yeah.
And so I wonder too, if now that I'm here, it's like partially starting to grid this land as well, because that could be part of it to create the vortex. Funny story. Our adorable little neighbors we just met on the weekend, they are putting up two of these. If you guys want to Google them, they are the cutest little things. They're called Lotus Bell tents. Lotus Bell tents. Adorable. They're like these little fairy glen, like so cute. Anyways, they're making these little Airbnb glamping sites next door on their property, because all of us either have like between 20 or 40 acres here. But they are going into wellness and connection with nature and getting back to simplicity. It's like the whole block kind of has that vibe, except for the one guy in the corner who has a lot of toys, like trucks and RVs and stuff. He's getting close to Kawasaki engines. But I have noticed that it's like, I just don't have stress. And I wonder if there's something universal going on where those of you guys that are still plugged into that crazy high stress, everything that was going on with COVID, all of those financial waves, all of those things. I wonder if there's an opportunity for you to literally just like unplug and move over into the flow state if you're still feeling that, because it does feel like the current that abundance and ease and healing and connection and change just happens there, and you don't even have to think about it because it just is.
Yeah. And I think like those of us who have been chronically stressed or, just in the space of constantly telling the same story that nothing is ever working out for us, that everything is just hard, all of those stories, like we have to like really take a moment to check in and be like, is that even still true? I know that may be the experience that you're currently still walking through, but if you really check into the energy behind it universally, is that even the true story? Like, if you just stop telling that story, would that shift? That's something that I've been questioning a lot lately. And I think a lot of other people are too. And it's starting to feel like anytime that we're in a state of not being fully true to self, and that being a state of unstressed, not being stressed out, what's happening is it's becoming even more of a fight. Mm-hmm. So it becomes even more stressful.
Yeah.
Even just the tiniest bit off. So yeah, I don't think it's just you, but I do know that you're somebody who generally questions how you're feeling moment to moment and doesn't just make assumptions that because you were feeling this way last week, that that's just how you always feel. So I think that's part of it too. like you take those opportunities, right? When something comes up to like just get into alignment, you just tend to take it, and not everybody is practiced in that. So yeah, I think it's really awesome that you're, having that experience. The other thing that popped into my head actually when you were talking was, did you get your stuff back?
No, we don't have any of our stuff.
I'm wondering if there's a level of it, like of the lack of stuff having anything to do with it.
There could be. One of the interesting things I found, because so what Violet's talking about is when we moved from province to province, we loaded all of our stuff into a moving pod. So we don't have any of our furniture or any of that kind of stuff. So our house is like super empty except for our kitchen. And we have our beds in from our travel trailer. That's what we're sleeping on right now, which is cool. We're down with that. And then we packed a very small amount of clothes so that each of us had like a capsule wardrobe. That's about it. And then the dogs and the cats. So one of the interesting things is I haven't had the like distraction to stay inside. Everything I've been doing has been walking the land, mapping everything out, going out there. And it's like the home is holding everything. It's waiting to receive, but it doesn't require my focus. And the walls are already all white. Like I don't have to paint, which is fantastic. Super amazing. But the irony wasn't lost on me, Violet, that is taking a while to get here for sure. And it'll be 2 total weeks that we've been without our stuff by the time it arrives.
It's like you just have more space than you have in a really long time, even just by not having the stuff there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should, like, once all your stuff shows up, you should get rid of it. I just think it's a great opportunity to like
down with couches.
Yeah, just like light everything on fire. No, I think it's a great opportunity to like, check in and be more intentional before your stuff even arrives, of like where you want to put it and how you want it to be laid out to support your days and all of that, right? So I think that there's potential there, but also maybe it might be worth checking in and being like, has my not my capacity, but has my requirements of the stuff around me changed?
Yeah, possibly. Hey, there's a lot of things, like as I'm like feeling into the bones of this house and this property and the way I want to feel, the way I want it to look, the way I want it to move, like all those things that I'm starting to visualize out, that I'm like, there definitely are some things that will get reevaluated. Certainly we got rid of majority of them before we even moved, but yeah. So I will say, if you guys are not moving, but you want a little hit of this, one of the ways you can do this is go through a good purge, like really go through your home. And it's like those furniture pieces that are falling apart. If you never use them, or you don't sit in them, or every time you do, you're cursing because you're like, this is crap, get rid of it and sit on the floor. Put a pillow on the floor and live like that for a couple of weeks. I dare you, go through and declutter all your cupboards, get your drawer organizers, do your pantries, like do the things that give you space. Actually, this is like kind of the last thing that we can wrap with today. How is it we always manage to get one spammer?
There's so popular, I guess. I don't know.
I guess
I did delete a few from the last one earlier today because I don't know what they were talking about, but it was not what we were talking about.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes they just like get on a roll and they're like, beep, beep, bop.
They're just opportunistic.
Yeah. After I did a live stream on Friday with James Wedmore, so hopefully those of you guys that were in the Grow group heard it, because in my opinion, I thought it was an epic call. Like the nuggets of wisdom that James shared were just phenomenal. I had the opportunity to stay on with him afterwards, and I asked him a really interesting question. He's been, like me, kind of a vagabond for the last couple of years, moving house to house, not really grounded, not where he's going to be, like building things up, renovating, moving on to the next one, building things up, renovating, moving to the next one. We've both been in that thing. And I just said to him, like, in that process, did you find that it was difficult for you to actually make like high level decisions and to stay focused? And, how much creative juice did you still have at the end of the day? And we got into this conversation because I was sharing, as I've been in that transition, like there's very little of me during those times left to go around because everything was like an inconvenience for me. It's like I didn't know where I needed to drive. I didn't know where I needed to go get this. You know, I never fully unpacked or like put all my stuff exactly where I wanted it, all of these things. And we were talking about the importance of the things that are somewhat, I'm going to call them irrelevant to being able to make big decisions, should be so organized and easy that you no longer have to think, including how you drive and where you're going to drive, where things are in your pantry, how your things get organized in your drawers, the color codings of your closet. Like, take the time it takes to put that level of structure in, because those of you especially that want to be creators on this planet and you've got big business dreams and you want to, you know, hold that stuff up to the world, you need creative potential. And if your life is constantly in upheaval and you're constantly having to make decisions about every single thing you do, there's nothing left of you to go around. And so it was really good just to hear from another high performing professional, you know, how they mitigate that in their life and what they're doing now, you know, being on the other side of it. So
Decision fatigue is a big thing. It's a big thing. So I think that's definitely an area that I'm like really starting to focus now. If it's something that has to get done or that I really want to get done, make it as easy as possible so I don't have to think about it, right?
So you're coming at it from a slightly different angle than I am too, because
Yeah.
I mean, Violet, let's be real, she pretty much like half runs the company. Um,
Yeah, but but I am still an employee, right? So
you are. So you don't have like the massive responsibility part, but you still hold it.
Yeah.
But you're coming at it more from an angle that I think other people could appreciate. So like, where are you trimming the excess? Where are you tidying up? Where are you starting to see that things are a little too chaotic, that you're like, no, this is my next project? Like, what's been bouncing in?
Well, even little things like I hired someone to come clean my house. I started doing that back in the fall. The team that I found was inconsistent. They kept having staff turnover changes and just it just wasn't always working. I would go like 4 weeks without having anybody come. So I was like, this isn't actually helping me. So I found somebody else who's local and it's been great. They've been coming every time, but it's still every week that they're coming, they message and go, is this time, does this day, this time work? And I'm like, why are you making me make all these decisions every week? So little things like that. So I'm going to be having a conversation with them and being like, can you just put me on the calendar and I'm just going to expect you. And if you have to change it for some reason, then you can let me know. Because I can be flexible, but I don't want to have to make the same decision every week, right? Like, should just be a standing situation. So little things like that are even getting to me. Having to make meal decisions the day of is not working for me. Like, if I have to decide what I'm going to make for dinner today, I'm not making dinner. It's not going to happen. I'm too tired by the end of the day because I'm learning all new things at work. You know, I'm making lots of decisions. I'm spending all of my creative juice during my work day, which I'm good with. I'm good with doing that, but I still need to eat, right? So it's kind of like,
So that's the perfect application where it's like you have prioritized where that creative juice is going to need to be. And so now you're looking at, okay, if I don't have the creativity left at the end of the day to put it here, this is where I have to come up with a solution.
yeah. So like today at lunch, Daryl made lunch because it's a holiday today, so he's not working. So we made a plan for dinners for the rest of the week. And I picked the easiest ones that we like had recipes for. Like, we saved the recipe cards from those meal kits. I don't know if any of you guys have tried them, like HelloFresh, Good Food, those kinds of things. But it's funny because when the recipes come, you're like, that's so simple. I could have just thought of that myself. But
It's not the point.
But that's not the point, right? The point is that you didn't have to think about it yourself and it just arrived and you can just make it. So I've kept all the recipes that I really, really enjoyed and the ones that I knew I could replicate on my own. And now I just go through them and pick them because I already know they're easy. I've already made them before. So I picked 3 for this week that were like super duper easy and they used a lot of the same ingredients. So I only have to buy a couple of things at the store, made the shopping list. And after we get off our coaching call which we have to go to soon. But after we get off our coaching call, we're going to go grocery shopping. And I made the actual, like, this is what I'm making every meal. And then I'm going to do the prep work tonight so that I don't have to think about it during the week. And I can just go into the kitchen, grab the ingredients, stick them together in a pot, and away I go, kind of thing. So I still have to prioritize it, but it's like picking a day when my creativity isn't being used up to do it, and working with my partner on it, because he's like, well, you can just pick and choose as you go. And I'm like, but that's not going to happen. I know myself.
Yeah.
Right. So meal prep and stuff is one of those points. And the other thing I'm doing is I actually bought this book. I should show you guys. I think I might take a picture and put it up in Circle later. It's called Fridge Love. I think you've probably been following her on Instagram. Yeah, you're like, yeah. So
I love it.
yeah, so I bought her book, and right at the beginning, she like blew my mind with this whole mindset reset about how because you guys probably know this about me, a lot of you do. I've been in avoidance of dealing with food and stuff for so long. I'm just like, it's such a pain in the butt. Why do I even have to worry about this? I should be able to just like blink and it arrives, that whole situation. So yeah, I was reading the book, and right at the beginning, right in the intro, she's talking about how at no point in time in our history have we ever been fortunate enough to have things like a modern refrigerator and the ability to cook. It's always been way more work than it is now. And I was like, duh. It was like this being grateful for the fact that we have like modern refrigeration and storage capabilities for food that allows us to prep things in advance. And it has really cut down on the amount of work it is and how much waste that there is in general. I know we still, as a society, waste a lot of food, but there's a lot of potential to not do that. And so I am starting to think of it as more of like a way to kind of honor myself in that way, and to also honor my ancestors, the people who came before us who had to really struggle to eat well, right? So I don't know, just different mindset resets there. So
let's just quickly tie this all back into your spirituality and why we have these random conversations on Mondays.
yeah.
When your creative potential is wrapped up in all of your everyday human stuff, there is nothing left for you to get still enough to receive all of the stuff you guys are trying to receive, period.
Yeah.
When you are obsessed with the laundry, the dishes, looking after the family, the organization of the house, the cleanliness, the things around you that you don't like, the things that are pissing you off about the flow of your home, when all of those things are consuming you in that way, you don't have space for stillness, and you're going to fight for it. So this is why I'm always on my students: clean your room, purge, make your house your temple. Your house is a reflection of what's going on in here.
And the practices I've been doing to date have got me to this point, but they're not supportive for where I want to go next.
Yeah.
Which is key. It's like, if I want to take my intuition to the next level, if I want to be able to pull in new information and data sets for you guys, even, I need to clean up my behind the scenes, all the things that are supporting my day to day, because they're just not cutting the mustard anymore. Right. So it's like designing your life to support the places you want to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
So I'd love to know what you guys are going to go attack in your homes and your organizational loves now. The Home Edit is great to watch. Fridge Love, the Nutritarian, people like this, if those are kind of projects that you like, Marie Kondo, the crap out of your house, whatever you got to do, it is totally reflective of the space you are trying to curate internally, which all of, every person that I've ever come across, all they ask me for is freedom, flow, and to get the data that they've been searching for but can't seem to find. Well, guess what? You can't find anything in a messy closet or a messy fridge. So there you go. There is your metaphor analogy for the day. Have fun with that one. We'll be back next Monday with another random conversation. And those of you guys in the Grow group, I'm going to do a little conversation on social media, I think, tomorrow. And I have some perspective shifts that I think are going to help all y'all out. All right. We will see you all